In 2020, because of COVID-19, traveling is out, but there's no reason you can't meet old and make new friends at an Agile conference. The Scrum Master Toolbox podcast teamed up with Tom Henriksen to organize the 4th year of the Agile Online Summit, and you can attend for free. There will be networking events, lots of talks on important topics, and 8 amazing keynotes from Mary Poppendick to Alan Holub, Jeff Patton, who's the creator of user story mapping, Neil Killick, who's a no estimates pioneer, Jeff Watts, author of Scrum Mastery, a great book for Scrum Masters, Jeff Gotthelf, Bob Galen, and our very own Marcus Hammarberg, who's the author of the Bungsu Story, a great Agile transformation story. You can get your free tickets at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word. Once again, bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word, and the link is also on the show notes. You can get your free ticket or opt for the full digital access that lets you keep all the conference videos forever. And for example, organize Agile learning sessions at work by watching those videos. You can get the full digital access at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. But don't forget, there will be lots of live networking events, so I'll see you at the conference floor. Hello everybody, welcome to our Team Tuesday this week with Pieter Verbaarschott. Hi Pieter, welcome back.
Hi Vasco, hello.
So Pieter, on Tuesdays we talk about teams and how sometimes they can become their own worst enemies. But before we dive into that, we always ask, what's the book that most influenced you in your career as a Scrum Master?
Yeah, I have the answer ready because it's really a book that influences me a lot in my work as a Scrum Master. And although I don't have the exact title, but it's the, let's say, the collected works of Professor Richard Hackman. He was a Harvard professor who studied teams and let's say team success conditions. So he was completely not in the area of Scrum and Agile. He researched teams in the American intelligence community, for instance, like FBI teams with analysts and so on. But he did a lot of empirical research onto the situations of teams, the sizes and shapes and goal settings and all the different aspects and dimensions of teams, and painted a picture where he could say the successful teams have certain things in common. And this is all done by research in hindsight, let's say by measuring. So as one of the ideas that describes how teams work, it's opposite to many of the books that you often see, which have like a silver bullet, 7-step plan to create successful teams. This is really the opposite, where you just look at histories of teams and see what worked and what doesn't work. And basically, there's a few broad areas where you can look at team success conditions, and I try to guard my teams on those conditions and situations based on the work of Richard Hackman.
Very good. And is there something that, as a Scrum Master, you would highlight from the work of Richard Hackman? Something that you say, okay, this I believe should be in the Scrum Master training, for example.
Exactly. So one of the obvious, well, there are many obvious comparisons with Scrum teams that his research for me really describes well. So one of the things that we see is how you set up a team in the relation of setting the direction and the goals of the team, right? Are you going to tell a team exactly how to work, or are you only going to give them a goal to achieve? And combinations of that really determine how successful a team is. So you'd rather have successful teams where you only specify the goals and the outcomes that you want without prescribing exact process. That's what he found in his research made for better teams. So these are literal things that we see return in the Scrum Guide, where, for instance, the product owner would clearly only discuss the what and the why, and leave the details of how to build stuff to the team. And that's a success condition that I recognize from his research and also from the Scrum Guide. It says the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I think as Scrum Masters, we very often kind of skip because it's only a small part of the Scrum Guide. But there's one aspect of Scrum that focuses the teams on goals, which is setting the sprint goal, right? And many times I see teams only have the single goal, the only goal of completing all the stories in the backlog. But the stories can be, disparate and not really about anything in concrete, but rather lots of small changes, and that kind of loses the ability that the team has to innovate, to bring their perspective to the table, and to actually help the product owner reach a significant goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So the sprint goal, indeed, as I've come to understand it, is you really, how do you say, experience the power of a good sprint goal in Scrum if it really leaves all the implementation and the how for the team to solve, right? And this is also what Hackman's research tells us. Purely focus on the what to achieve. Do not prescribe any process. So if in Scrum the goal becomes to finish all the items, that's really more of a process prescribed goal than an actual goal. Right, the how is already implied in how you should proceed, so it's not really a goal. And yeah, so that helps me think about what I see in Scrum and how teams are operating. To use a little bit of outside knowledge from outside of the Scrum Guide.
Absolutely. And what a great book to have in the Tuesday episode, which is exactly about teams and how sometimes they are set up for failure, right? So tell us the story of a team, maybe a little bit about the context so that we may understand, is it a small team, big team, one project, multiple projects, like a little bit of the context, and then walk us through that story, the steps that led that team to implode, to create problems for itself. Explain to us how that happened and what were the dynamics, the behaviors that were generating that problem.
Yeah, so I think all or most of a team's journey is caused indeed by the behavior of the team members, but it's also caused or determined in a large part by the context and the surroundings of the team, right? The corporate environment and the rules and regulations and whatnot. They already determine the success of a team at the outset. But yeah, so teams can self-destruct. I think actually that what I've seen is when teams really start to maybe self-destruct is a big word, but I would say that if a Scrum team is not improving and pushing its boundaries in what they can achieve, and they are stagnating or keeping a status quo, then they're already slowly self-destructing themselves, right? So that's what I've seen. And in one case, there was the situation where higher management, let's say, or CEO had some ideas and the team was not courageous enough maybe to say no. So they started to follow the path, not of the product and the product owner, but of someone outside of the team. And that is a sure way to self-destruct and destroy all the options for improvement that you might have had at that point.
So explain that a little bit to us. So I'm imagining that there's this manager, typically, I don't know if it was a manager, but I'm assuming it was a manager that kind of started giving the team things to do and maybe even implicitly telling them that those were more priority than the things that the product manager or product owner wanted them to work on. Is that how it happened?
Yeah. So at some point, I had a team member in a training session who has also been in such a situation where you have outside people, maybe managers outside of the team, giving you priorities and directions, and it becomes all very confusing for the team. So if the team doesn't say no and doesn't prioritize with the product owner only, and takes a stand against their manager, then you put yourself in such a situation as a team unknowingly. And one team member said at some point when they realized this that, if we don't step up and say no, then we are part of the problem, right? So it became obvious how self-limiting it can be if you don't say no to the CEO, right? You have to step up and make sure that everybody sticks to their role. And that sometimes means that you have to clearly say no, but it takes a bit of courage. And if that doesn't happen, a team is on the path of more and more self-limiting behavior.
And not just self-limiting, but I can imagine that, for example, conflict with the product owner and conflict with the product organization, because assuming the product owner isn't part of the same organization as the team, and it does happen, then there's going to be conflict between organizations.
Exactly. And you can imagine that in such a situation, the product owner is sort of split between also wanting to please the CEO, let's say, but also seeing the problems in the team because of this situation. So they're put in the middle sometimes in that situation as well. Right? It's a tough job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking that as Scrum Masters, one of the things that we need to do is exactly to help the teams feel the courage to say no. Not necessarily as a, blunt no, but something like, hey, have you talked with the product owner? Can we discuss this with the product owner? Hey, have you agreed on the priorities with the product owner? And such things that are not necessarily a direct no, but they are definitely directing the behavior of anyone that is outside the team to agree with the product owner in advance before bringing things to the team.
Yeah, so what I've seen is there are several things actually that teams can indeed do to protect themselves against such influences. And as you say, of course, for me, indeed, I like to ask the questions. Did we check this with the product owner? If it's not on the backlog, then why are we working on this? Right, just really small but easily verifiable transparency questions, let's say, right? We're supposed to do Scrum, so if we're not doing this, then there might be a good reason that I don't know, but please explain. Otherwise, we should stick to making things transparent. All the work should be visible. So with the Scrum Guide in hand, it's actually really easy to pinpoint and show this kind of behavior. And that's for me a great help. The other thing I think a Scrum Master should do is to actually model this behavior himself. So whenever someone comes with an unreasonable demand to the team, let's say, Scrum Master should just step up and say, nope, that's not how we do this. Please talk to our product owner and put it on the backlog. And I could be saying this to the CEO standing in front of the team. And I have done such things. So you have to also show that this is the behavior that you actually need.
Absolutely. Showing the behavior is also one of the most powerful tools we have as Scrum Masters.
Exactly. And when I realized that, I also realized that it is now actually up to me to show all kinds of behaviors, regardless of how comfortable I am within myself.
Exactly.
So that's a bit of a personal growth experience that I'm having by trying all these things and sort of seeking my own personal boundaries and trying to do the Scrum values, let's say. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that story, Pieter.
Thank you.
Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. But tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.